I'm going round. Yeah, I'm going round.
Morning. My name is Reverend Yochanan Stoppai, presiding minister over the ministry of Alpha to Omega. This is our inaugural sermon, and today we're going to be talking about religions, spirituality, science, and philosophy. There's an old saying that goes, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. My reprise to that is, if you stand for everything, you will fall for nothing. In other words, if you have all your bases covered, and to stand for something is to say you understand it, because you can't stand for something unless you understand it. So if you understand various things related to religion, universe, nature, you're going to be well equipped, and you're not going to fall for anything. To start us off here, I have this book here. It's from my grandfather. It's Mystical Prayers, non-traditional prayers to different entities other than the traditional entities, secular prayers as well. So this prayer is one from the Greek philosopher Socrates, and it goes like this: grant me to be beautiful within, and all I have of outward things to be at peace with those within. So in other words, to be at peace within and without. That involves a certain harmony, and it's essential for well-being. Even the philosopher Socrates spoke of this, even though he wasn't a religious figure, but he was, as you know, executed for perverting the minds of the youth and other people. So in today's society, we have, again, religion, spirituality, philosophy, and science, and they're all intertwined. Yet in our society, people tend to focus on just one. A physicist tries to explain everything merely through physics. A minister tries to explain everything through one religion. People practice spirituality and mindfulness because it makes them feel good, but they don't think why. All those things are okay, by themselves. But philosophy, that's an art that died a while ago, and it was really supplanted by science. But every field of study, including science, which used to be called natural philosophy, the studies of all things natural, that is nature, eventually evolved into science. There used to be a philosophy of economics, a philosophy of government. Every field had somebody thinking about it, what it meant, and what the structured discipline that manifested afterwards, what that should look like. So let's just talk about religions right now. Religions. So there's a number of traditional religions. We're all familiar with them. Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, and you can keep on going. Not any single one of them is 100% right or 100% wrong or any proportion thereof. They're all open to interpretation, and they all serve a purpose. The primary purpose could be how to live your life, what to do, what not to do, how to be a nice person, how to be a good person. Other purposes could be to unite with God, to have a better afterlife, to have a better current life by being closer to God, and what have you. Now, these religions evolve with society. Even the most strict to the letter religion, probably Catholicism, recently embraced homosexuality. That might have been Pope John Paul. I'm not sure. But several hundred years ago, the Catholic Church was executing homosexuals. So they really did a 180 on that. So they were influenced by secular beliefs, and just like secular beliefs are influenced by religion, it goes both ways. Even this ministry here is a product of a society that has evolved and become more tolerant of gender orientation, sexual orientation, different religions, mixed religions, and here we accept everything and nothing. Even atheism, which is defined by the absence of a belief in a supreme being, is dependent upon the definition of a supreme being. So in a way, it's a religion, just like asexuality is a sexual orientation of being not oriented to anything. Spirituality evolves. A lot of people that subscribe to a certain religion adopt spiritual practices of other religions that used to be prohibited. A lot of the churches, a lot of the religions would prohibit that. They had to approve something before somebody would do it. A lot of Christians practice, meditation. Somebody who follows Muslims might practice mindful eating or mindfulness in general, even though it might not be an express practice of that religion. So spirituality is an evolving thing that doesn't have to necessarily relate to any spiritual being whatsoever, or even nature. It could just be getting your body in tune and being healthy. Meditation is good for your mind. Sometimes spirituality and religious rites involve psychedelic drugs and other drugs that are considered illegal by society, or at least looked down upon by society. And these plants and drugs are accepted because they provide a pathway in spirituality, or the people who practice it so claim. Now, I'm going to talk about philosophy some more. Philosophy experienced a kind of a slow death. When we think of philosophy now, we think of a bunch of guys in white coats in a room, discussing very minute points or writing obscure academic papers that nobody's going to read, and analyzing philosophers from hundreds of years ago. Philosophy isn't really taken seriously anymore. You get a philosophy degree, for instance, and you really can't use it anywhere. And why did philosophy die off? Well, we tend in our society not to value any thinking or science or practice that doesn't deliver near immediate results, or it doesn't produce technology, or doesn't produce money. So people musing and just thinking and kind of sorting things out, it can align your mind and be powerful that way, but there's not going to be very few manifestations of it. But the bad thing about this is that we should have a philosophy of technology right now. People should be thinking about what technology does to individuals, to people's spirit even, and society in general, and maybe guide technology on maybe where it should go, or at least attempt to, instead of just inventing things left and right and not thinking about how they're going to change things. Science evolves. Obviously, that's there's even a theory of evolution, but science certainly evolves in the course of scientific progress. The bad thing about science now, and the crux of science used to be, you'd have your hypothesis, you go through the scientific method, and then you devise an experiment to either prove or disprove your theory, and then if it was refuted, then you change back to the drawing board, change your theory, change your experiment. When you have experimental success, for sure, the most important thing in science is to explain why what happened the way it did, and why your theory was correct. This was abandoned back with quantum mechanics, which were solidified in the 1940s after the atomic bomb. it was so weird and complicated that nobody can agree on explanation on what it was. But imperialistically and to derive technology, it worked wonderfully. But nobody stopped and said, hey, listen, we need an adequate explanation for this to proceed. They didn't. They just proceeded and they exploited the science, and they never, to this day, we don't understand what quantum mechanics really is. And then there's, I'm not trying to bash science, but there's huge disparities in knowledge and gaps, that need to be filled with a different approach. As I mentioned, quantum mechanics, physics in general, is broken up into three theories: quantum mechanics, Newtonian physics, and relativity. Depending on what you're looking at, there's no unified theory. It's chopped up. This whole question of dark matter and dark energy, which constitutes 95% of our universe, and we have no idea what it is. That's a big slap in the face for science, but a large unknown for us to be excited about and to potentially explore. If there's any extraterrestrials, the explanation of how does their technology exist. Obviously, they can bend gravity and they have it solved the way those flying saucers fly. And then, there's still supernatural events that occur. People try to dismiss them with various explanations, but they're out there. There's medical miracles that happen regularly. Got near-death experiences. You have people's health that is affected by emotions. It's possible to literally die of a broken heart, and before that happens, the heart manifests physical changes that reflect the fact that the heart's in the process of being broken. So even if you knew everything about one of these four fields, there's still going to be gaps in understanding and guidance in your own life. So you got to integrate them as much as possible to facilitate a full understanding of what we're trying to do here. And the more you understand the universe on these different planes or from these different vantage points, it'll allow you to accept and love the universe more and even love each other more. And that's why it's important. So I'm just going to give a couple examples of cross-integrating these disciplines and fields of study that I've been discussing. So there's some science out there that probably supports some of the tenets of your religious beliefs. Find that science. It's probably out there, at least partially supports what is previously deemed mystical or just religious and stuff like that. Within science, there's vast unknowns. Dark matter and dark energy, biggest example. There's large things that are unknown about God or nature or the universe or spirits or how everything works, and that's there in science. So there's some reverence of how much we don't know, even if you look at it from a purely secular perspective. Take some time with your philosophy and just think generally, what would a utopian society look like? Would there be any laws? Would there be any rules? Ironically, the most highly evolved beings would have no form of government. Anarchy. Now, normally when we hear anarchy, we think of people destroying things and stuff like that, but anarchy really means self-government. You don't need institutions presiding over you, telling you what to do. You don't need laws because you know well enough for yourself. It's kind of like being under the rule of your parents and then graduating and leaving the house. Well, you still have to follow the rules of society, but if people were evolved enough, they wouldn't need societal rules, and they would know how to behave and treat each other. Last example is cross meditation with a prayer. Be in your meditative state and start sending a message to a saint, spirit, some kind of mystical figure. Basically cross-linking religious prayer and the spiritual practice of meditation. So it's a daunting task, obviously, to try to understand the universe through any or all of these things, but the structure of the universe is based on these things called fractals. So if you want to imagine a fractal, picture a circle, and then when you zoom up to the circle line, it's a bunch of little circles, and then when you zoom up to the line of those little circles, it's the same thing ad infinitum. So if you just find the basic patterns in the universe, the building blocks, the principles by which the universe operates, not just per science, but spiritually, people, cause and effect, synchronicities, you can start to glean a large understanding once you put those building blocks together. It doesn't take as much as you think. The base building block of the universe and its fire for desire, its energy source, is unconditional love, and that's the whole purpose of everything. And this life is an attempt to express that in various forms. Even a solar system, it looks like an atom has a large mass in the center and a bunch of smaller things rotating around it. You could say atoms are a fractal of solar systems. Just another example. So my advice to think about this is to continue to be observant, look around you, look at the different pieces from all the different sources. You could probably break it down into 7 different, fields, or 3, or, whatever classification system makes the most sense. That's what made the most sense to me when I was writing this sermon, but maybe you have a better, explanation. So I'm going to end again in a mystical prayer that sort of touches on what we've been discussing here. And this is from Synesius. And it goes like this. O unity, thee, I sing by voices or by silence, for both are alike significant to thee. The sound of silence, so to speak. So, it's a song by Simon and Garfunkel. It's a good song. Anyway, I wish you goodwill, and peace be with you.
And we're changing our ways, taking different roads, and love will tear us apart.